So one of the things that you've done a fantastic job, I think, teaching people over the years is how money in the economy works, right? Everything from the cash flow quadrant of just get the hell out of the left side and get on the right side of the thing, et cetera. You've literally educated millions of people. For those that don't understand it, the stimulus, I think, is there's two components to it that crack me up, right? And I want your opinion. So the first is the $1,200 check. I just call that's the bribe. That's the bribe for to avoid social unrest. We're going to give you guys $1,200. Everybody shut up. And, we're trying to help you. And if things get really bad, we basically give you $1,200 and you're good, which isn't actually helpful to majority of people, right? But then you also get the stimulus to the corporations, which, you've highlighted. It's just socialism for corporations or socialism for the rich. So maybe talk a little bit about what exactly you mean by socialism for corporations or for the rich.
Well, I think there's a great book. It's a big book, but get the book. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island by my friend G. Edward Griffin. And this is, I think it's the 1990s this book came out. And he wrote in there, bailout is the name of the game. So the Fed's only purpose, and the Fed is not a bank. It's a cartel owned by the richest people in the planet, which we'll never see. They're this guy, Grudge. This is Buckminster Fuller. Grudge stands for Gross Universal Cashless. So the guys that own the Fed control the world. Not the Fed, but they control the world. So once you understand that, you go, okay, now I better start doing something different. So what the creature does, it drops the world into this crisis. And the pandemic is probably real. But then you get so desperate, you'll take the money. It's communism.
Yeah.
See what happens, what Edward Griffin says in The Creature from Jekyll Island, was that when Marx attempted to bring communism to America, the problem was Americans are too tough. The American spirit is too strong. So what Griffin is saying here, what Fuller calls Grudge had to do, or Marx had to do, was introduce socialism first. So the way you introduce socialism is called social security and all that. They have these crises, the Depression, 9/11, this one over here. And people get so desperate. Rickards is saying the same thing, Road to Ruin and all that. We get so desperate, we'll take anything. And so they're going to give you this $1,000 check but first have to bust your spirit. And that's what I was saying to my friend, send your kid, even to the Coast Guard. Do something, grow up. Yeah. So you get so desperate, you take that check. Next stop is communism. So he goes capitalism, socialism, communism. And you can see it right now because they're going to bail Boeing out. Guess what? The Fed's going to take part ownership of Boeing. That's communism. Study economics, you idiots out there. That's communism. So they bust our spirits. Oh, $1,200 from the government because I don't have a job. Well, that's the same exact number that did in Hong Kong not too long ago. All those guys were rioting in the streets. They gave them $1,200 also. Mm-hmm. And this book here, by Bucky Fuller, Gross Universal Cash Heist, they have VR money systems. That's why there's no financial education in schools. And that's why today I'm doing better than ever. I'm making money hand over fist. My biggest problem is I can't get enough inventory of my cash flow gains, which is a good problem, not complaining. But we have to pay extra to air freight them in, stuff like this stuff. But it's a good problem. But we were prepared for it. Yeah. And if you went to school, you're not.
Yeah, I think part of what you're really highlighting here is this whole idea that anytime a crisis occurs, it's an opportunity to grab civil liberties, personal freedom, and also economically. And the part to me that I don't understand why people are missing this, but I think you've done a great job highlighting it, is the socialism for the rich and the corporations. That's going to happen. Whether you and I like it or not, it's going to happen. And so that's just what it is. But the cost for the bottom 50% of Americans when the stimulus occurs, right? The devaluation of the currency and kind of all of the things that I think the gold bugs and the Bitcoiners have been yelling and screaming about for years, It's here. It's happening right before our eyes. And the sad part is that the people who get hurt the most are the people who are the most vulnerable, right? The people who actually need the most help, they get hurt because they're sitting in cash. They have no real assets. They're getting paid, hourly wages that aren't adjusted for inflation, et cetera. And there's nothing they can really do other than educate themselves, which is what you spent the last, 20 something plus years doing for people, I think.
Well, look at the worst part about it too. They send their kids to colleges or universities and they load up with student loan debt. And that occurred in 2009, when Obama he basically said to the banks, look, you lend these kids all this money and the Fed, the Treasury will back them up. And now those kids are desperate. Mm-hmm. That's why I wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad back in '97. I created my cash flow board game. It says, our schools don't teach us anything about money, but that's what this book was hearing, Grunge was Giants. It's not an accident. GRUNCH stands for Gross Universal Cash Ice, and we can see it today. That's what this book is saying. We're shifted from capitalism to socialism. You have Bernie Sanders and AOC and the rest of those cartoons running. And then when they bail out Boeing, which is in trouble anyway, but they're going to take a percentage ownership. So you can see it goes from capitalism, socialism, communism. And that's what this guy was saying. That's what Creature from saying. And that's what Rickards is saying in The Road to Ruin. This is not a mistake. And we've been warning people all these years, and they still send their kids to college and learn nothing about money. But they learn they're fragile.